I was getting worried. I was in my meeting and nobody was showing up.
It's already saying it was already in progress.
Yeah, I'm not, sometimes Zoom does the weirdest things because I started the meeting about 10 minutes ago, ran up and got a cup of tea, came down and was surprised when nobody was there. And then as we got it to 9:15, 9:16, it's like, well, holy crap, am I going to be by myself today?
Morning, Frank. Yeah, it kept saying that the host had another meeting already in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it had dual meetings somehow. That happened the other day to me too. I had to quit the meeting and then go start another meeting. So just weird.
Good morning.
Good morning, Daniel. Looks like you made it on there. Good job. Okay, let's see. Anybody else joining now that we got going? How's everybody doing?
Good.
Yeah? It looks like probably your support staff is going to be operating at home for a little while longer. The governor hasn't given a date. He's supposed to give one, I think, tomorrow, but he indicated yesterday, if any of you saw the meeting, that he is going to be extending it. So, gosh, I'm thinking about becoming a real estate broker again, just so I can get out of the house. I mean, literally, since this has happened, I've been to 2 food drives. I did leave the house at 5:30 yesterday morning and ran into Lowe's to buy a couple things. So that's 2, 3. I ran to the office to drop off some signs. That's 4. So I think I've been out 4, maybe 5 times since this thing started. So I don't know. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Frank.
Again, sorry for the rough start. I had a meeting started and nobody was showing up, and then I started. So thank you to everybody who started sending stuff in Teams about, oh my gosh, what's going on? Because otherwise I would have just been sitting here thinking nobody loves me.
That's not true.
Yeah. Okay. So
I gotta finish cooking my bacon and eggs so I can have breakfast with y'all.
Oh, nice. I'm just glad we don't have smell-o-vision. Otherwise, that's what I'd be doing. It looks like Daniel's eating his breakfast. Good deal. Okay, well, let's. Looks like that's all the people that have come through. The waiting room is a new thing too. It seems like because so many people have been hacking into Zoom, that Zoom has started putting in some automatic features, and one of them is the waiting room. So I think what happens, I haven't used it yet on my side, but it looks like you guys come in and you're holding, and I have to click the admit button to let you in. So that's been kind of a new thing here over the last week or so. So how many of you are doing transactions right now? Daniel's doing some transactions, good. Who else? Jamie's doing some transactions, good job. So it's still going on. I was coaching with a broker the other day who was lamenting about how it'll be great to get back to work. And I pointed out, wait a minute, there's plenty of work to do. You don't need to wait for anything. Right now is the time to interact with your people. And even if your people, so it shouldn't be you that's holding things back. It should be your people that are holding things back. So as long as you start stacking up people that indicate, yes, I want to go look at houses, but I don't want to go out right now. Or yes, I want to sell my house, but I don't want to do it right now. I don't want possibly sick people coming through my house. I get that. I would never tell you to try to talk them out of that, but we need to have them on our list. So that way, when this thing is over, we pull out our hot list and we say, okay, these 4 people said they wanted to sell their home as soon as COVID was over, or they were feeling safer. Touch base with them every week. And then I've got 6 buyers that want to buy, but we want to wait. So I can tell you every day, you guys are bringing houses on the market. They're receiving multiple offers. And in many cases, they're selling for above full price. So we're still dealing with escalation clauses. I had a long conversation on the phone the other day with a broker about an escalation clause and how that worked. So, and that was on the listing broker. She had 4 offers, 2 of which had escalation clauses. So there's still kind of crazy stuff going on. Okay, so today I promise that I will have you done by 11:30 because I've got a meeting, a web meeting that goes from 11:30 to 2:30. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. I don't see anybody in the waiting room. Yeah, I don't want to be like a doctor where I just leave you in the waiting room forever. So, okay, so let's jump in and we're going to do, so today, so first of all, did any questions come up from last week? So no questions from last week, no comments, no thoughts or challenges. Okay.
What did we do last week? I don't even remember.
So last week was kind of an intro. We were talking about you acting as your own COO, putting together the basics, you know, a financial system, a lead generation system, a presentation system, all those different systems in place. So it's pretty much laying the foundation upon which you build your business. Here again in coaching, I've been coaching with a couple of brokers that are frustrated because they're not doing enough stuff outside, but yet they've done phenomenal things inside. So building a good foundation to me is touching base with your client on the phone or Zoom right now. That's a good foundation. Having your database set is a good foundation. I'll use Phil as an example. Phil has over 800 contacts in his database, but only about 120 of them have all their information. So Phil, next time you and I talk, or you can start today if you wanted to for bonus points, is your goal is to go through all those people and reach out to them. Many of them had phone numbers. Call them up and just check in on them, see how they're doing. And oh, by the way, I don't have your email address, or I don't have your mailing address. So start reaching out with those people because, yeah, I mean, having 800 is a good start, but it doesn't do any good if you can't communicate with them. So go into your database, make sure, and here's the challenge. And Daniel, you sort of fall into this category. You're like an Indy 500, a 14-year-old Indy 500 racer, a 500, Indy 500 race car driver, in that you've gotten into the cockpit of your car and you're driving like a maniac, but you haven't even had any driving lessons yet. So good for you, good job. But going back and filling in the foundation, making sure your contacts are solid, making sure that you've got all the data that you need for each of your contacts, have a plan in place to communicate with them on a regular basis, and then from there building up and getting a good, strong foundation, your knowledge and understanding about the process, the 18 to 22 people involved in a normal transaction, what forms are used in different instances, and that's something you can't take a class and know it. You can't take a pill and know it. It's something that you have to consistently drip. It's a drip system. Little things done consistently over a long period of time. And that's why it's so important to be to these classes and stuff. So let me just scroll down here and I'll get to, okay, there we go, there's that. I don't know about you guys, but I sometimes get lost in files. The filing system, oh my gosh, where did I hide it? Where did I put it? Okay, so based on last week, so I'm gonna open up last week, and last week in your material, you had a thing called an action sheet. So here were the things on your action sheets. I'm not gonna call any individuals out, you know whether you did them or not, but begin collecting your database. So for those of you that are brand new, begin collecting it. Daniel would certainly fall into that category. Collect it, get it all into one place. One of the things one of our brokers has done that I think is very wise is they've just created an Excel spreadsheet that has all the data. First name, last name, address, email address, phone number, everything in cells. And so that is the database, and they're always going to maintain that and keep that up, because the beauty of having that is if anything else breaks, doesn't matter, you've still got your database. If you decide you want to adopt a new program, great, you can upload that Excel spreadsheet into that, whatever the new thing is. If it's a Buffini thing, great. If it's My Desk, great. If you decide to take up some other type of database, great. You can just upload that information right from the Excel spreadsheet. But what we all have now, and I mean, I'm just as guilty as anybody else, I've got stuff in my phone, I've got stuff in My Desk, I've got stuff in BombBomb, I've got stuff in Send Out Cards, I've got all these places, and it's not all the same. So getting that is just critical. Send at least 5 handwritten notes. Have any of you sent handwritten notes this past week?
Yes.
Good. How many did you send out, Kelly?
2, because I had a closing.
Right now, many people are unemployed. Many people are stuck at home. They love to get something in the mail. So get stuff out to them. Enter 15 people in your database, meet with 2 for coffee, lunch, or breakfast. I get that's not possible, but you can do sort of like Jamie and Daniel and I are having a breakfast meeting, right? I mean, right now, you guys are having breakfast. I'm having a cup of tea. There's no reason why you can't do that with your client. And there's actually, in the COVID marketing section on my desk, there's actually a fun little invite that invites somebody to a virtual coffee. And so that's kind of fun. So do something like that. Make it fun. Read the Law of Real Estate Agency brochure. So today the homework was to read it last week. We're going to get into it a little bit today. Set up and review your daily hot sheet in the NWMLS. Have you guys been reading the one that that Ryan's been sending out every day?
Yes, it's great. Thank you, Ryan.
Watch that. Why? That's critical. Set up 2 people in Property Tracker. Visit 4 open houses. Okay, no worries. Get it. Use your logbook. Go on weekly home tour. Okay, get it. Sign with Realtor.org. I think you guys are all signed up for that already. Sign up with it. You're already signed up with the MLS. Post the Getting Started package at your desk and start working on it. So all of you were given at one point or another the Quick Start Guide. And so hopefully you've worked through that and use UCR Weekly Progress Report. So that was sort of the homework from last week. This week, let's go ahead and jump into the new material. So again, we're going to be into week 2, and the premise, and I'm going to share my screen here in a minute. I know you are always so excited about this. Let's see. Okay, so this is the premise upon which this whole concept of 8 phases of business development is based on. So I'm going to jump over here and share screen, and there it is. Okay. Go. Does somebody have a question?
Oh, no, I unmuted and I'm shooing the dogs away. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. So can everybody see the 8 phases Excel spreadsheet that I have open? Is that what you're seeing? Good.
Yes.
Okay, so to me, this is the circular fashion upon which our business is built. Over the next 11 weeks now, we're going to go through these different sections. And so, as you can see on the far left-hand side is the most important part of this business. And this is the biggest reason why so many brokers get out of the business. It's the reason why we have something like a 70% of the brokers who started out in the business never renew their license. It's because they come in having watched too damn much HGTV, and they think it's about design, they think it's about colors, it's about showing houses and how cool is that, and driving nice cars and wearing fancy clothes. They come in with a perception that's different than when you come in the business. For the first couple months you're in the business, you've got dirt under your nails every day from digging, and it starts right here with lead generation. So each chapter and each week we're going to go over 1 or 2 of these methods of lead generation. It's almost a self-healing program. If you are generating leads, the rest will take care of itself. I promise you. The challenge is those people that get stuck in the administrative side of things where their files are perfect, their desk is perfect, everything is perfect, but they got no business to put in the pipeline. So it all starts with lead generation. And most of these have not changed in the 30 years that I've been in the business, although with the advance of technology, it's gotten a little bit different. From the standpoint, sphere of influence, that's at the top. And these aren't necessarily in order, but sort of. Sphere of influence should always be at the top of your of the list. So there's sphere of influence, there's circle prospecting, expired and withdrawals, for sale by owners, open houses, geographic farming, social farming, and professional farming, events, your referral program, floor time, cold calling, and then internet marketing type leads. So I always look at these as layers of the cake. I don't know of a broker that can build a dynamic, growing business with coming from just one of these. As we saw in the Monday morning business meeting when Brian Wilson talked about, I consider Brian to be an extremely successful real estate broker, but yet he does not rely on just one layer of the cake. So that's where I always tell people, pick 2 or 3, maybe 4 of these. So let's say a broker came to me and said, okay, sphere of influence, everybody needs to choose, because the sphere of influence is the one thing that, if done right, will mean you're not having to work and dig as hard for leads in 5 years as you are today. You got to get the sphere of influence part down. But then from there, choose maybe circle prospecting, maybe for sale by owners, maybe holding open houses, and maybe geographic farming. So maybe you pick those different ways of building your business and lead generation. So, so pick those. And the fun thing is once you pick them, then you can start setting goals for yourself. So if you say, oh yeah, I want to do open houses, great. How many a month do you want to do? And what is your expected return on your investment of time? Are you going to get 4 transactions a year? Or are you going to get 7 transactions a year? So each of these can have their own individual payout, provided you do them consistently over a long period of time. So this is, to me, lead generation is where your success at real estate is at. Again, I can teach you the rest. We can help you use our lead generation, or I'm sorry, our listing coordinator, transaction coordinator program. You can use that to get good at the administrative stuff. You can hire an assistant if you need to do that, but it's hard to do the leads. Lead incubation is the next one. Okay, great, I've got these leads. Lead incubation is about, because our industry has been really good at, if you need to buy a house in the next 30 days, we are all over that. As an industry, we are awesome at that. If a person doesn't have a need for 180 days, we are bad at that. We almost have adult onset ADD here, because yes, they're new. We want to help them buy a house. Oh, they don't want to buy a house for 6 months. Oh, and then they get lost in the dust. So lead incubation, lead follow-up is the next critical thing. Then that goes into presentation. So you work so hard to generate the lead, you nurture that lead, and then finally they want to meet with you. Well, now you've got to get good at your presentation skills. That means you need to be really good at putting on a listing presentation, or really good at putting on a buyer presentation. So that's where we get into presentation skills. Next is, based on those presentations and underneath those presentations are what are the services I'm offering? I mean, every broker will put a new listing into the MLS. If that's what you go to a listing presentation with, you're going to be mediocre at best. You'll be just like every other broker. So what is it about you that makes you first an average broker, but then an above average broker because of all the other things that you do? So the services that you offer for both buyers and sellers are critical, and being able to define those and internalize those, because if you can't internalize them, if you can't get jazzed and excited about them, that energy is not going to carry over during your presentations. Then next is contract construction. So, okay, great. I meet with a buyer or I meet with a seller who wants to list or buy. How do I put that contract together? Do I fully understand how the contracts work? Do I understand how they interact with each other? These are the tools of your trade. It's just like the surgeons. They spend hours and hours cutting on bananas and oranges and then sewing those bananas and oranges back up again. You need to be doing the same thing with purchase and sale agreements. You should know which ones to use. Picking an addendum off the shelf is just like picking an instrument off a surgery tray. Is what tool do I need next to accomplish what I need to accomplish? So contract construction is critical. Now, once you're under contract, how do you manage that? How do you follow up on it? Do you spend every day following up on that one contract, or do you have systems in place to monitor it, and then you can go out and do more lead generation? Then you move into closing. What does that look like? How do I go to escrow? Do I go to signing with my client? Do I bring them a thank you gift? What kind of follow-up is there? Then that leads into the follow-up part. Okay, great, they closed. What most brokers do is they close and they never call these people again. They're spending so much time and money looking for the new stuff, they never take care of the people who have been satisfied customers in the past. So the follow-up, and then if you were able to roll this piece of paper up into a tube, it all feeds back to lead generation, doesn't it? Because at the follow-up based on a closing, that person now becomes a satisfied closed customer of yours that goes back into the lead generation and the lead incubation. Even though that person just bought a house from you today, and we know they're not statistically not going to need to buy a home for another 8, maybe 10 years, that person knows every single year 4 different people who need to buy or sell real estate. And that's what you're after. You're after keeping that relationship alive and getting referrals from that person. So that's how I perceive and how I've laid out this class based on how real estate goes. Thoughts, comments, questions? Is it all making sense?
Yes.
Okay. So as you meet with yourself, if you put this on your wall and every month you take a day to work on your business, not in your business, Looks like Ryan's twin brother wants to join us. So let's see. So I just admitted him. There we go. Hey, Ryan, is this Ryan or Ryette, Ryan's twin brother?
Sorry, I had to help Mary Lee to get on the 8 phases.
Oh, okay.
Everyone needed to get out and re-put in the code for it to work. And it's her birthday today.
Oh, good. We'll have to, when she comes down, we'll have to wish her happy birthday. I don't see her in the waiting room yet, though.
She should be coming.
Okay, cool. So, so in any case, that's the cycle of 8 phases of your business, I think. And as I'd mentioned, if you printed this out and put this by your desk, and once a month when you work on you take a day and you work on your business, not in your business, you should look at this sheet and say, okay, what am I good at? What am I bad at? What do I want to spend the next 30 days working on and developing? Just this sheet alone, I think, will help you focus on your business from a 40,000 foot level, looking down with your COO hat on and analyzing where am I lacking? What's going on? Where am I lacking? So sorry, that's going to ring for a minute or so. So there are the, so there's that. Okay, so let's jump in and we'll do our next one. Okay, so now we're going to get into, oops, wrong one. So here is a sheet that I hope you will find helpful. I think it's one that you should print out and stop and think. This is where you start asking yourself. And I know, well, I mean, for a couple of you, like Daniel might be a good example, where you don't even know how these programs work yet. So it's hard and unfair for me to say, oh, come up with a plan for how many you're going to get from each of these. Know going in, though, that you want to always do sphere of influence, and you want to pick 3 or maybe 4 others and start learning about those and using them. For a new, oh, there's Mary Lee. She wants to be admitted. There we go. See if she joins us. Mary Lee. Hey, happy birthday, Mary Lee.
Happy birthday.
Were you trying to call me too?
Hello.
Hello, Mary Lee. Happy birthday, Mary Lee.
Thank you. I had trouble getting in.
Yeah, believe me, I can relate. I had trouble starting the meeting this morning. We were all in different meetings, you know.
Oh, wonderful.
So keeping this sheet handy is a good reminder as to where your business comes from. Just from personal experience, so when I first got started in real estate, I know that was a million years ago, but I sent out, I think, 15 or 17 announcements. 3 or 4 of them stayed in state. The rest went to my out-of-state relatives, which does very little good to jumpstart your business, right? So I knew nobody up here. So when I first got started in real estate, I did anything, went anything, spent ungodly hours to get my business started. So I didn't have a sphere, but I knew I needed to build one. I did circle prospecting. I did a lot of these. Expired and withdrawals, I got on those. For sale by owners, I did those. Open houses, I did those. I couldn't do referral generation plan because I didn't know anybody to refer me business to. A little bit later, I started geographic farming, and certainly floor time and cold calling. So cold calling for me was big when I was brand new because, again, I didn't know anybody. I was relatively new to the area. And the good news about cold calling, and I know a lot of people roll their eyes when they talk about cold calling, it's sort of like if you want to be a doctor, and I'm obviously not, but if I were going to be a doctor, no matter how hard it is, I'd want to start my first year or 2 out in an emergency room in a big city because you get the grind and you see everything and you build up your confidence. The great thing about cold calling for me is that I knew you could, and this shows how old I am, you could blindfold me, drop me in, parachute me into any city. As long as you showed me a phone booth and I had a pocket full of quarters, I could make a living because I knew I could get on the phone and I could start calling people and generate business. So it gave me that level of confidence that the rest of it is easy because I don't teach cold calling. What I teach is warm calling and bringing value first and then having the conversation. That's what so many of our John L. Scott tools are built around is is that. And I just realized, so when I'm yakking like crazy and you guys aren't seeing anything, say, hey, Frank, do you want to share your screen? So, okay. So here's the screen that we're referring to. So lead generation activities for 2020. So, you know, maybe, again, if you're brand new, Daniel, I don't expect you to fill this out, but a couple of the others, I mean, Phil, you certainly can do that. Kelly, you can certainly do that. Mary Lee, with your experience, you could do that. Go in and pick the ones that you want to focus on and then set goals for yourself. Hey, I know, statistically speaking, your sphere of influence, 7% of them every year is going to sell. We know every one of them, they know 4 people that are going to buy or sell. That's what you're after. Mary Lee has a similar challenge to what I did because she doesn't have a sphere of influence up here yet. So that means everything below sphere of influence is where her business is going to come from. It's going to be mainly strangers. And whenever you're working with strangers, it's harder. You have to justify yourself. You have to prove yourself. You have to justify your commission or your brokerage fee. You have to explain everything because there's no level of trust because they don't yet know you. Now, once you've done transactions with them and you've stayed in touch with them and they get to know who you are as a professional and as a person, they become part of your sphere and hopefully they become raving stars where they're going to be giving you referrals on a regular basis. Raving fans is what I was trying to say. So they're going to become raving fans in which they are going to refer you to other people because they've spent time with you. They know how you work, they know your ethics. So great tool. So then based on this, now you can start setting your some goals for yourself. Based on the above activities, I will add so many people to my sphere each week because that's how you should measure your success as a new broker is how many people am I adding to my sphere every week. And then how many people am I contacting? So especially as you're building a strong foundation. So this is true for brand new brokers and for experienced brokers that are trying to get started again. The basics are the same for everybody. How many people do I talk to every single week? How many people do I add to my sphere every single week? And then here's an area where if you need help for stuff, I'm happy to help. And then this back page is what's the sphere communication plan? Because great, you've got 25 or 225 people in your sphere, doesn't matter. How am I going to communicate with them? So this is where you can start setting up a communication plan. What I always recommend is, there's face-to-face, there's phone, there's email, there's text, there's handwritten notes, there's postcards and other type marketing material. So those are like 6 or 7 different stuff you can send. Mix it all up. You should call them 2 or 3 times a year at a minimum. You should text them from time to time. You should certainly email them probably 2 to 3 times a month with valuable information that brings them value. So this is how you get a chance to mix it up and to put together your plan. Thoughts or comments on that?
I love this form, Frank. When I go back to basics, when I need to go back to basics, this is an awesome form to do that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just one of those things that so often, especially I find with computers for me, and I know I'm an older generation now, but for me, when it goes in the computer, it tends to get lost. But if I can print it out, put it in a notebook, put it up in my workspace, it tends to bring it to the forefront and I pay a little bit better attention to it. So this kind of stuff helps me focus what my activities are. I can look at something and say, I've always wanted to get better at open houses. Great, over the next 30 days, I'm going to take a couple of classes. I'm going to go visit. I'm going to call Frank. I'm going to say, Frank, tell me who you think the best open house holders are in Kitsap County. And then I'm going to go visit those open houses and see how they do it. So this is definitely a profession that you can choose what skills you want to get better at and then go do it.
Frank, I think Donna's trying to get into the class.
Yep, she's in. I got her.
I am. Thank
Hi,
you.
Donna.
Hi, sorry about that.
No worries. And thank you, everybody, for keeping your eyes open because I've got 4 eyes, but I still miss everything. Miss things. Okay. So, so now here's this next sheet. And I think we're not screen sharing. Let me see. So let's go back to screen share. So this next sheet is sphere of influence. So sometimes people get all hung up on sphere of influence. And you'll go to different workshops, you'll go to different gurus, Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, Brian Buffini, whoever, they'll all talk about their sphere of influence. And so your sphere of influence breaks down to this, in my opinion. It's people who you've worked with or you've touched or have a positive opinion of you, it's not necessarily somebody who will do business with you, because you probably have people in your sphere of influence that just don't have a personal need. They live in their forever house or whatever. They're just not going to do business with you, but they're a fan of yours. They're going to hand your cards out and they're going to refer you to others. That's a great person to have in there. Other professionals you work with. One of my favorites is my insurance agent. Now, granted, I don't send I still send Betty Skinner, who's my insurance broker. I still send her people whenever I come across them that need a good insurance person. But when I was younger and when I was actually working real estate, she'd send me referrals. So that's a business in which you can help them and they can help you. And that's the best kind of relationship to have. If you have a stockbroker, an investment advisor, you're a banker, an attorney, dentists, your doctor, veterinarian, CPA, your mail person, any of these people. I mean, just think your mail person, especially if you've got a mailbox. You know, I've got Monica, who's our mail person, and she just does a great job. And so if I was a practicing broker, I would push her a little harder if she knows of somebody, because sometimes they see evidence that people are getting ready to sell. So I want that person on my side. Past customers, sellers, even if they move out of area. So I can't tell you how many times I've had sellers that have moved to other states and they still call me for advice. They'll call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. So guess what? I can turn that into a referral, can't I? So, and then organization. So you want to put them all in one place. And in today's day and age, what I'm stressing is to put them in an Excel spreadsheet. The day will come, because I heard a word maybe a year ago now that I think is fascinating. It's called data lake. And a data lake is a place that all of your data is kept, and then from there it can be fed into different programs that you use. We don't have a data lake yet. I know people are working on them at the highest levels. So for me, my data lake would be an Excel spreadsheet. All my contacts, because that's probably my most valuable thing, is my contacts, my database. Keep it on a spreadsheet. A good key item for your spreadsheet and for your contacts is categorize these people. People can be in multiple categories. When somebody calls you and says, Frank, I need a good painter, you should be able to go in your database, search painters, and come up with a list of 3 or 4. Frank, I need a good real estate attorney. Great, get in there. Search real estate attorney. You should be able to come up with 2 or 3. So build your database. That's your most valuable asset as a real estate professional. So then, of course, have all this information. Birth date. I think that's kind of fun because you can do a birthday recognition program. When we sold our house down in San Diego, there were 2 brokers, John and Sean, that sold our house for us. They were awesome. For, probably 3 or 4 years afterwards, I got a birthday card every year from those guys. Now, they eventually lost track. We lost track of each other because I've moved 2 or 3 times since then. But I thought that was pretty cool. Anniversary date. So keeping the anniversary. You've heard me talk about the program where on the last day of every month, you should make a list of all the people who bought. So for instance, right now, you should make a list of everybody who bought a home from you in May and make that list. And now during the month of May, you need to, 1, do up an annual CMA for them and mail it to them. 2, pick up the phone and call them and say, congratulations, do you know what you were doing 7 years ago today? You were looking at houses and you bought this one. So that's just a great, easy program to be able to do for right now. Organize all the names into your database. Categorize them. We talked about a little bit about that, how you know them. And again, within my desk, you can have multiple categories. They can be from your church. They can be a past client. They can be part of your stamp club, whatever it is, they're there. And then put together your marketing program. 12 emails per year. That's probably not enough. Actually, this probably needs to be updated. 6 mailings per year, certainly. I used to subscribe to the thinking that every time I got a new listing, everybody in my sphere got a postcard about that listing. And the reason why was because I wanted to remind everybody I'm still active, I'm successful, I'm happening. If people haven't heard from you in a while, they think you're no longer in the business. So my program when I was a practicing broker is whenever I got a new listing, everybody in my sphere got a postcard. 1 in-person contact a year. I hear again, I think that needs to be updated. I think it needs to be more than that. And it can be more like a coffee or a glass of wine or a breakfast. So it can be that kind of a meeting. Enroll everybody in Property Tracker and or Housing Up Market Insights. Each year I'd send them a calendar and then an annual CMA. So here's a quick little program, and here's how I measure your that's 12, that's 18, that's 20, 21, 22, 23. So that's a minimum of 23 touches per year. And here again, I don't think that's enough because statistics show us that your clients will accept from people that they know and respect 3 to 4 emails per month from you without getting burned out. So Glenn Anderson is one of my investment advisors. He's with Edward G. Jones. He sends me probably 3 or 4 a month at least, and I look at them. Some of them I delve into and I click the link because I want more information, and some of them I just throw in the trash can, but at least I know that came through. So then, so this gets into when you see core marketing here, what I'm alluding to there is, let's say you've got 300 people in your database. Well, not all contacts are created equal, in my opinion. Out of 300 people in your database, maybe 30 to 60 people will be what I call core people. These are your favorite people. These are the people that you meet with, you bump into them in the store, and you never talk real estate. You talk about kids and schools and yard work and just, stuff, right? These are also the people that are sending you the majority of the leads. And so for core people, I treat them a little bit differently. I give them all the stuff above, the sphere marketing stuff. They get all of that. But in addition to that, they're going to get more contact from me. They're going to get 4 handwritten notes per year. They're going to get 4 items of value a year. They're going to get a birthday card from me. They're going to get an anniversary card. They're going to get 2 additional phone calls a year. And they're going to get 2 additional in-person visits. And most of these happen accidentally. Gosh, we haven't seen each other in a while. Let's go grab dinner. Right? And all of a sudden, oh yeah, I did interact with those people 2 or 3 times because they're more like friends almost. So the most important thing is they need to know you care. And that's why right now it's so important. Calling them, do not talk real estate, just check in on them and see how they're doing. Okay, thoughts, questions? So all of this stuff I sent to you in the link that I sent. Did everybody get all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's there free to use. I mean, if you don't use it, kind of goes to the side. There we go. Okay, so let me pop out the next one. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're doing good on time. So here's some talking points. Often, the reason why brokers, and I need to share screen, don't I? Or am I showing my screen?
You are.
I am, okay, good. Sphere of influence talking points. So often brokers don't talk to their clients, and it's because you don't know what to say. So here's just some words you can use, and it doesn't have to be unique. People don't compare notes. They don't compare notes when you send them a handwritten note. They don't know the fact that that note is basically the same wording as 3 other ones that you sent out, nor do they know that your phone conversation is similar. But it can be something like, hi, John, this is Frank with John L. Scott, just following up on our last discussion. So that's where you look in your notes as you talked to them last time, and you followed up with them, and they said, gosh, my wife and I are thinking about buying our first investment property. So you just lead right in and just following up on our last discussion. You'd mentioned that, after the holidays, you guys might want to start looking at investment property. Where do you stand on that? And it may be that they're not interested in buying at this moment, but it's still part of their goals. Great, then start sending them information. Send them information about return on investment. Start sending them information about local rental groups. Like there's, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think it's called the Puget Sound Renters Organization or something like that. So that's a great one, get that kind of stuff out to people. Hi, so-and-so, this is me with John L. Scott. The reason for my call is I wanted to make sure you received the information I sent you a few days ago. Did you find it helpful? So you do that kind of follow-up call. After you send something out to somebody, you send them out an unsolicited CMA, or you send them out some market statistics. Great follow-up. I'm with John L. Scott. How are you today? I'm calling today to update your contact information. I'm trying to communicate with more and more people, more and more clients electronically. I find it's quicker for both of us, as well as saving the planet 1 envelope at a time. May I get your email address? So Phil, this is you all over the place, right? Just calling people up and saying, I'm trying to save the planet today. 1 envelope at a time. I don't want to mail you stuff. What's your email address, right? So call them. Discussions with your core will be much more personal than discussions with the majority of your sphere. The reason is you know them better. And for those of you that have been to ninja training, this will look familiar, called forward. You'll hear the ninja instructors say when you call somebody, you forward them. And forward means you talk about family, you talk about occupation, you talk about recreation, you talk about dreams. Their dreams, their recreation, their occupation, their family. And what happens when you forward somebody correctly is that you will often know that they need a house even before they know they need a house. If you're talking with a family and the last of 4 kids just went off to college and they've got a 4,500 square foot, 4-bedroom home, they haven't thought that far yet because they're still, struggling through the beginnings of empty nesting, but they're probably going to need a smaller house at some point. So that's where you can kind of keep abreast as to what is happening. So let's see, our next item. Okay, so everybody take a breather. How's everybody doing so far? I've just done a big brain dump. So now we are, and am I still screaming? Okay, so now we're going to get into agency law. How many of you have read the agency law brochure? Okay, Daniel, you did. Mary Lee's good. Good. Okay, good. Phil has good. Cindy, I know you teach this. Jamie teaches this. Kelly, I know you've read this in the past too. So this is, as you interact with real estate brokers in different states, or sometimes you'll get a customer that thinks they're an attorney, they're going to insist that you have fiduciary duties. Washington State is not a fiduciary state. We are a legislative state. And this is RCW 1886, which is the law of real estate agency. This is what tells you how you interact with your clients. So if somebody says, you have a duty to me to do something, you can say, you might be right, but let's look together. And you can actually open up this brochure and find the reference that you're going to need in here to show you what your duties are. It outlines how you interact with people. And we're not going to read it word for word. I do expect you to know it. This is something that you give any client before you start, or as you start offering any real estate services, you have to give them a real estate agency brochure. So that means you should have a stack of them at open houses. So that way, if a client walks through the front door and they're going to start asking questions, you want to make sure that they have this. You could hand this to them and say, are you working with a real estate broker currently? And if they say yes, well, then you can say, okay, great. Well, then you may have already received one of these, or have you already received one of these? It's required that we hand these out. Who's the other broker you're working with? I know most of them in Kitsap County. And if they hem and haw, then you know they're not really working with anybody. But if they do say, yes, I'm working with so-and-so, then I think you should ask one more time, oh, that's a great broker. Do you intend to buy your next house using that broker? And if the answer is yes, then I want you to respect that relationship. I never want you to steal a client from somebody else. So respect the working relationship. But if they hem and haw and they don't really know of anybody and they're not sure, or gosh, they haven't heard from that broker in a long time, well, then in my opinion, that's somebody that you can politely begin asserting yourself with in an attempt to work with them on their next transaction. So giving them this law of real estate agency brochure is a great place to start. The law is where you need to start. So basically what RCW 1886 does is it lays out what your duties are with respect to your representation to a seller. So what allows you to represent a seller?
Listing agreement.
A listing agreement. Who said that?
Mary Lee.
Mary Lee. Okay, so you get a gold star. So
Thank you.
So anything else, the only way you can represent a seller is if you have a listing agreement with them. And RCW 1886 jumps in and outlines what your duties are to a seller. Now, can you go above and beyond those duties? Absolutely, but you sometimes do at your own peril. You should really focus on offering the best service possible within what's given. And I'm going to go back to screen sharing here, so that way you can see the document that I'm looking at. So it gets into definitions. What's agency? What's an agent? What's a broker? So read through the different definitions. Relationships between brokers and the public. Duties of a broker generally. So this very well breaks down what your responsibilities are. Now, again, you can choose to go above and beyond, but one thing that's in here is it doesn't say in here that you are an expert on roofing. If you act like you're an expert on roofing, then the public can hold you accountable for that. So that's where you begin to outline, what am I good at? What am I supposed to do? What am I licensed to do? And what shouldn't I do? If a client says, well, gosh, you've been in real estate a long time. What do you think of that roof? You can say, well, I can see where you might be concerned about that roof. I would recommend having it inspected. And so that way you get a professional involved. If you sit back because maybe you were a contractor in a past lifetime, oh, I think that roof looks good to me. Guess what? 6 months after they move in, it starts leaking, and now you find yourself sitting on a witness chair and in a courtroom, and that buyer understandably looked to you as an expert. You acted like an expert. You gave what they perceived to be an expert opinion, and it was wrong. You're toast. You're buying somebody a roof. So read through duties of a seller's agent. So it breaks down when you're representing a seller, what are your duties, and then duties of a buyer's agent. So reading through and understanding these duties of a dual agent. So I want to pause here for a moment and talk about dual agency. So when a person walks in, so let's say, so the only way you can represent a seller is to have a listing agreement. You can represent a buyer without any additional paperwork. You can just start showing houses. You can write up an offer on behalf of a buyer. You can represent that buyer throughout the transaction. It can successfully close. There is a thing called a buyer's agency agreement, though, and I highly encourage brokers to use buyer agency agreements. In fact, I don't think enough brokers use buyer agencies enough. So let's talk about a scenario. You're sitting in an open house. It's your open house. It's your seller. You represent the seller. So anybody walking through the front door, you know at the beginning that you represent the seller. The challenge is that so many brokers think there's only one direction to go, and that's dual agency. When that buyer comes in and you find that you're getting along with them and you've given them a copy of the buyer agency agreement, you're having nice free-flowing conversation, and you go down the process of, are you working with another broker? No, I'm not. We're just new to the area. Great. I'd love to be able to help you out and work with you. But before we get started, let me explain a little bit about what that looks like and what your options are. So one option is that you can represent the seller, but treat that buyer as a customer. So sort of like when you go into Nordstrom's, and I know, Phil, you do this on a regular basis. You go into Nordstrom's and you're at the perfume counter, and that gal at the perfume counter is helping you pick out your fragrance. So you know that that person's going to be helpful. They are interested in getting a sale, but you're also clear of who they work for. They don't work for you. They work for Nordstrom's. So that's sort of the customer approach. When I'm representing a seller, the buyer comes in, I can treat them as a customer. I'm going to treat them fairly and honestly. I can help them with the paperwork. I can help direct them to inspections, or inspectors. I can help them with the whole process. But what I need to be clear with them on is I represent the seller, and if you have an opinion or a strategy, don't tell me what that strategy is. Keep it to yourself. Otherwise, I have to share it with the seller. So if this home is on the market for $500,000 and you're thinking about offering $475,000, but you really would take $500,000 if that's all the seller will do, don't tell me that strategy. Keep it to yourself. I can help you with everything except negotiating against my client, the seller. So that's option one. Treat them as a customer. Option two, become a dual agent. Now, becoming a dual agent can be a challenge. In many areas, it's looked down upon. In fact, sometimes attorneys get downright snarly about it, and they look at it as an opportunity to sue somebody. Why? Because attorneys are not allowed to be dual agents. If indeed, if I got angry at, let me pick somebody. Let's say I got angry at Jamie and wanted to sue Jamie, and I went to an attorney, and that attorney was Jamie's attorney. That attorney would have to recuse themselves, and I could not choose that attorney because that attorney is already working for Jamie. So attorneys they're kind of dumbfounded about how is it that they can't be dual agents, but yet real estate brokers can be. So if you are a dual agent, that means that you have a listing agreement with the seller, and in that listing agreement, there's a paragraph that says that authorizes you to be a dual agent. And when you're working with a buyer, you have a buyer agency agreement. And guess what? There's a very similar paragraph in the buyer agency agreement allowing you to be a dual agent. So now you have to have written permission from both people. Now the law says you have to disclose once what your agency relationship is. And in the state of Washington, that once is done on the face of Form 21. There's that agency paragraph where it says selling broker represents somebody and listing broker represents somebody. And the choices are buyer, seller, or both parties. I think there might be a neither on there. Might be a neither. I don't recall. I'm sorry?
There used to be a non-agent.
Yeah. So when you fill that out, you need to pay attention to what you're doing. So if I'm a dual agent, I'm going to be checking off represent both parties because that's what my disclosure is. And in order to do that, I've got the listing agreement and I've got the buyer agency agreement. Now, I've also had the conversation with both parties, and they both have the Law of Real Estate Agency brochure. And I've had the conversation that I say in that case, remember when I was treating the buyer as a customer, I told them up front, don't share with me any confidential information because I have to share it with the seller. It's different when you're a dual agent. I tell them a curtain goes up. We can talk about anything and it stays with you. I can go to the seller. We can talk about anything and it stays with you. I never cross the two. The only thing that people lose, in my opinion, in a dual agency situation is going head to head as far as negotiating. I'm not going to employ any negotiation tactics or skills to try to negotiate one party's position over another. I'm going to lay out the information. So what that means for the buyer, I'm going to put together a reverse CMA for that buyer. Let them see the numbers, let them draw a conclusion. I've put together a CMA for my seller. I'm not going to help negotiate against that buyer. Having said that, there will be times, and in fact, I used to use it as a differentiation. When I went in for a listing appointment, I would have a similar discussion with my seller, and I'd say, okay, seller, now you have a choice to make. Are you okay with me acting as a dual agent, or would you prefer I don't act as a dual agent? Because if you say no, then I will always refer that person off and I will not be a dual agent. So to me, that differentiated because I had some sellers that would say something like, gosh, none of the other brokers I've interviewed had brought that up. And it seems to me that brokers are always interested in making more money. It seems like you're more interested in looking out for my best interest than making more money. So have that discussion when you go out on listing presentations, and sellers will respect the fact that you gave them a choice. Most brokers do not give them a choice. So now let's circle back to our scenario. Remember, option number one was be a dual agent. Option number one was to treat the buyer as a customer and represent the seller. Option number two is to be a dual agent. There's a third option, and the third option is after talking with the buyer may say, you know, I think I'd feel comfortable with my own broker. That's perfectly fine. You can refer them to another broker and receive a referral fee, and that does not violate any of the duties or any of the who you represent. Who pays you doesn't necessarily affect who you represent. So if a client came into my open house and after talking with that client it was best, I could refer that client to Cindy, and Cindy could represent that buyer and then pay me a 20 or 25% referral fee, and we just go our merry ways. So those are the three options, and often brokers don't realize or treat it like they have those three options. And it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with how much money you're going to make or getting both sides of the commission. Although that's always nice, I get that. It really more has to do with what's best for the client and what permissions have your clients given you. So I think at the end of this, what I want you to remember is as you put together a contract, if you're going to be a dual agent, you do need to have the listing agreement and the buyer agency agreement before you can be a dual agent. I think DOL, if you go by the letter of the law, is you're supposed to have that buyer agency agreement in place before you cross the threshold of the house that you're showing to that buyer. But I get that you start showing houses, and before you know it, you wind up showing them one of your own, and then they become interested in it, and then now you're already writing up a contract and a buyer agency agreement at the same time. Okay, that's better than nothing. But what I would prescribe is it's better that as you work with a buyer and you have your buyer agency presentation and your buyer presentation, that you conclude your buyer presentation with the buyer agency agreement and hopefully have them enter into it. One of the best forms that I think John L. Scott has come up with in a while is the buyer agency agreement, the John L. Scott buyer agency agreement, because I love the visuality of it. It visually shows you all the things that a selling broker does for their buyer. And so I think that's a pretty good tool. So get in there, use it. It's available in the library. And I'd highly recommend that you use buyer agency agreements as much as possible. So I didn't even scratch the surface, to be honest about it. I do want you to read this. Any questions or conversation about agency? It's tricky. You can get lost in it. You have to become a student of it. So here again, I recommend you read it often, come back to it. So let me give you a tricky scenario. You're working with a buyer. They want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath Rambler in Poulsbo. You're working with a second buyer. They want the exact same thing, and there's only one of those on the market. What do? Well, buyer agency agreement kind of lays that out. Not only does it lay it out, but above and beyond that, you need to make sure that you feel comfortable about who you are. In all actuality, you can work with both buyers who are both making offers on the same property, and your duties don't come into play until after you're under contract, because what you're not allowed to do is do anything adverse to your client. So that's where if you had if you were a dual agent on a listing and your seller wanted to bump your buyer, that's a pretty tough place to be, because now you're taking action to bump your buyer. So that's kind of a bizarre place to be. But above and beyond that is you sleeping at night with your own integrity. For me personally, even though this doesn't support it, if I'm working with 2 buyers that are after the same thing, I'd let both buyers know, hey buyer, I want you to know I've got another client, the Joneses, that are after the same thing. They're going to be writing an offer on the same house this afternoon. You want to write one now? Here are your options. Option 1 is I'll move forward and I'll do the best I can for both of you as fairly and honestly. Option 2 is I can refer you off to another broker who will represent just you, and I will represent these other people, or vice versa. So have the conversation with them, even though this doesn't say that you have to do that. To me, that's got more integrity.
Frank, could you
Yes.
could you talk a little bit about, say you have a listing and you start to get multiple offers, but you're being a dual agent with one of those potential buyers?
Thank you for asking me that. That's an awesome question. So here's the scenario. You've got a listing. In today's market, that's gold. You've got 2 or 3 offers coming in, and lo and behold, one of the offers is one of your buyers. So you're writing up an offer for that listing in competition with 2 or 3 others. Typically what happens is, and I'm taking the dark side of this, your offer gets accepted. The other brokers that represent those buyers get angry. They learn that it was your offer that was accepted, and they accuse you of dastardly dealings. So, and have you done anything wrong? Probably not, as long as the offer that seller accepted was truly in the seller's best interests and not in your best interest, because you're going to get 2 sides of the transaction. If truly your offer was a superior offer, better price, better financing, local financing, shorter closing time, all those things that your seller wanted, and they accepted your offer, nothing wrong was done at that point. However, there's the perception of dastardly dealings with these brokers who are mad because their offer didn't get accepted, right? A way that you can protect yourself from that is, I'm certainly happy to do it. Or if you have a mentor and your mentor is comfortable doing it, here's how I've rolled in the past, is that for the moment, I take over your seller. I meet with your seller in the conference room at the office, and I represent your seller. I mean, I do represent your seller anyway. As your broker, they're my client too. So then what I do is you come in and you present your offer just like you would any other time. You present it to myself and your seller. Then I have the other 2 or 3 brokers come in and present their offers to the seller. And then I sit and counsel with your seller to determine which offer is truly best for them. And then once they make that decision and that offer is either countered or accepted, then I turn it back over to you and say, okay, Daniel, here were the 3 offers. Yours wasn't one of them. They accepted offer number 2. Now go to town and get this thing done. So in that way, there's a little bit of an insulation factor there, such that the other brokers can't necessarily point at you and said that there were dastardly dealings being done, that you were just, doing what was best for you and not your seller. So, and here again, I'll never come up with a rule that covers everything, because it doesn't. I've had brokers in the office that after I look at the situation, the offer that they're writing is clearly better. And so on its face, it's a better offer. So then I'm not so worried. But if you've got 2 or 3 offers coming in and they're all kind of similar and all kind of, different weird ways, because sometimes it's hard to compare 2 offers because they got some strange, I'm more than happy to help out. And I'm always more than happy to help out when you have multiple offers, to help spreadsheet it, because literally I get out the yellow pad and we write down the pros and cons of every single offer, and that way you can present to your seller so they can make a decision that they can live with. Because at the end of the day, it's their decision, and if it fails, then they have a hand in, they made the choice, not you. So yeah, so did that answer, Cindy?
Yeah, thank you. I think the other perception can be that you as the listing broker, and you're seeing all the other offers, you have the advantage that you can, just bump yours up a little bit because you know about everybody else's offer, and they didn't know that they could just, pad it, $1,000 and they'd be on top. So that gets real touchy.
Yeah, they feel like you've got an unfair advantage. And here again, while there's no rule that says this, again, I try to operate so that I can sleep at night. If I've got multiple offers and I represent the seller, obviously I'm going to include the seller in this conversation, but I usually want to share whatever information I have with everybody equally. I don't like it when you're sharing information with just one party. Then I think that gives them an unfair advantage, and now that's when questions come in. But if I just have a routine of sharing any information that I have with all of the offerees at the same time, then they all are dealing with the same information, and I can truly believe that they're putting their best offer forward based on the information they have. Because the worst thing you can do is have brokers start saying you're playing favorites, or, oh, well, the reason why that one got accepted is because they're another broker in your office. I don't want that. If it turns out that it's somebody within our office, amen. I mean, it helps the company. It helps you guys because you can talk across the desk as opposed to having to work between companies and offices. It works out really well, but I don't want that. There's some real estate companies out there that they want a bunch of in-house transactions, and they take actions on a daily basis to give their brokers the first chance at selling new listings for in-house transactions. I get their motivation. I just don't think it's right. Okay, so any other questions? That was a good one, Cindy. Okay, so go to the next item. Gosh, all this stuff is so exciting. Whew. So here's just a list, this next page, and let me get back here to sharing. So this next is just kind of a teaser to help you build your database. What are your children's coaches' names? What are your children's dentists' names? Who does your dry cleaning? Who does your services your car? Who is your mail carrier? So this is just ways to bump your brain a little bit to stop and think about, did I really include everybody in my database that I know? Who do you ski with? Well, I don't ski, so I never had that one. I don't even golf. But who do you talk with at your health club? Okay, how about racquetball? Where do you go to breakfast? How about your waitress and your wait staff? Who are your old coaches? How about past jobs? One of the things I find about this industry that is fascinating is most brokers don't come to us through college and through high school and college. They usually they work in different professions, they do different things, and then they wind up getting into real estate. Well, that's a great resource. Don't forget all the people that you worked with before. They all serve as referrals. Most of them own homes by this point. So you have a lot of value that you can bring them. So stay in touch with people that you knew in past professions. Now, you will have to go through a process of training them and teaching them that you are no longer that old person, that you are now in real estate. So make sure you spend that time and invest that time. You can have fun with it. I remember a broker that I had, Bob Buswell. He's since passed on. A couple of you remember Bob. But Bob used to own a restaurant in Silverdale that everybody knew, the Sandpiper. And so we went through a little thing when I first hired Bob where he had a chef's hat on, and then he had a hat with a big R on it, a real estate. And so we went through a postcard campaign that said, hey, it's the same Bob, I'm just wearing a different hat. And so you can start having fun with some of that. There was a broker that we hired up in Don Todd. I don't know if anybody ever remembers that name, but Don Todd used to be a principal in North Kitsap. So he went through a whole campaign of postcards to his sphere of influence, which were teachers and school administrators with school-related stuff, trying to remind them that, no, I'm no longer in education, I'm now in real estate. One of my favorite ones is it had Don up in front of a blackboard, and he had it all filled out, but they were writing, I will call Don Todd, I will call Don Todd, I will call Don Todd. And I thought that was just so cute, because it's linking up with that old persona that person had, and now running in a new one. So Daniel, a fun one you could have is, I'm walking in new shoes. And I don't know how you do that, but you came from the shoe industry. So I'm walking in new shoes, and maybe they're big realtor shoes or something. I don't know. But, you know, don't just walk away from all those relationships and all those people that you knew before. And even if they don't live in this area, I mean, you've got a lot of contacts in China. Well, guess what? We're part of leading real estate companies of the world. A big part of that is China. So if you've got somebody who wants to invest here in this country, Chinese people that want to invest in the United States, we can hook them up with people, right? So don't just walk away from all those past relationships.
Okay.
Okay, so next item of value here. Okay, so birthday tips. So this is kind of fun. I think this might have come from Emmanuel. So Emmanuel Fonte has just a great attitude about birthdays. Anymore, somebody's birthday shows up on Facebook and everybody, yeah, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Well, get beyond that. Do something more than that. Call them on the phone, and just give them a phone call. Send them a text message, send them a voicemail. What if you sang happy birthday to them? As much as we might not be singers.
I'd lose them then.
You'd lose them then, yeah. Handwritten note, personalized Coke bottle. So there's a link for Coke bottles. Send a link specific to their birthday. So history, that's kind of a fun one. Look back at what happened on this day back in 1959 or whenever it is. So have fun with it. And that's why I've got a lot of brokers that, so when you first meet with a buyer for the first time, stranger danger and broker safety, what if you made a copy of their driver's license? So if you made a copy of their driver's license, you're going to practice safe real estate. They know if they're a bad guy, they're not going to want you to make a copy of their driver's license, but now you've got it as part of their file. Guess what? You have the correct spelling of their name. You have their current mailing address, although that may be changing if they buy a house, and you've got their birthday. What if you plug that into your database and now you hook them up with a birthday program? Maybe something like the Send Out Cards program, where you send them a nice little card and maybe some brownies or something. So find ways to make yourself unique and different, and birthday is just it's a giveaway, right? It's just, who's going to be mad at you? Oh, you're sending me more junk mail. This birthday card is junk mail. Stop it. You're never going to hear that. So birthdays is a great way to just get out there and remind people that you're in the business, that you're thinking of them, and that you're there. So that's kind of a fun one. There's so many serious things in real estate. I'm always excited when I find the fun ways to do real estate. So career development activities. So if I had a wish for you, it would be that you would take this document and print out 52 of them. You would 3-hole punch them, put them in a notebook, and keep them by your desk. And that you keep track of everything that you do. Because here's reality, and this is not an accusation against anybody. Human nature is, if I ask you, how many calls did you make last week? You're going to say 12. And in all honesty, you think it's 12, but if you really counted, it was really only 7, right? So this is a way to help keep you honest, keep you real, and keep you on track, because I get real life is that some days, some weeks, you make a bunch of contacts, and some weeks you just don't. And so that's okay. But if you have enough weeks in which you don't, that's when you fail at the business. So this helps keep you there. So just I want to take a moment and go through the top of it. Here's your name, here's which week it is, and then here's the date of the week. I usually start my weeks out on Mondays. Personal notes. You want to send out at least 2 personal notes a day. That can be a written note, or if your handwriting is bad, use send out cards. That's a great program for that. It emulates your handwriting. Down the left-hand column are action items. These are just items that you want to accomplish this week. If you begin every week on Friday, the Friday before, and talk about, okay, what do I want to do next week? And then you also carry that forward to the point of at the end of every month, you look ahead and say, what do I want to accomplish next month? Then every Friday, what do I want to accomplish next week? And then every afternoon, look at what you want to accomplish tomorrow. If you have that kind of practice in place, you will find yourself accomplishing more tasks. Every time you accomplish a task, it's 1 or 2 more steps towards your goal. So these are the action items down the left. Face-to-face meetings, that's pretty easy. Just keeping track of going to coffees, going to breakfast, grabbing a glass of wine. You know, if you did 1 a day, okay, what if you didn't do 1 a day? What if you just did 3 a week? Oh my God, that would be huge. Calls to your sphere, what is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across that way, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that way. So that's simply saying 5 days a week, I want to call 5 people in my sphere. Now I get it. If you've only got 5 people in your sphere, that's going to be hard. So their job 1 is to increase and grow your sphere. Dropping down a little bit, added to your database. This is where you keep track of people that you add to your database. And it's hoping that you're going to add 5 people to your database every week. That's a great way to grow your database. And where do those people come from? They come from wearing your name badge and somebody talks to you in the grocery line. Okay, maybe not so much today, but, or at the movie theater. Yeah, maybe not so much today, but maybe it's you meet them at open houses when we get back to normal. Maybe it's, you know, who knows the different functions and things that you do. If you're wearing your name badges and you're doing open houses and you're out there in the community, those are people you're going to add to your sphere of influence. And then these little check boxes is, okay, did I get them signed up for housing updates? Did I do that? What is your mindset? So that comes down to some books that you can read. If you've done a social event, let's go over here to the left, hot list, writing down the people that you think are ready to do business with you now. Below that is a warm list, people that are a couple months out. And then below that is real estate reviews per week. So that's where you send out an unsolicited CMA. Just send out 2 of those a week. If you send them out on a Monday, by Thursday, pick up the phone and call them. Hey, did you get that information? Did you find it helpful? And again, that's not specific. You're not doing a specialized CMA. All you're doing is a generalization to get the conversation started. If they do need a true value of their home in today's market, that's when you'd step back and do a full-blown CMA. Jumping up a little bit, any type of work you've done on the internet. Below that are buyer consultations. Below that are seller or listing presentations you've done. Then back up here is market insights. So what clients do I add to Market Insights? So it encourages you to go out and add 5 people a week to your Market Insights program. Any open houses you held, and then any things that you learned this week. So if you filled this out every week, and I've never seen, nor would I expect every line to be filled out every week, but it's a way to help you keep yourself on track for things that you are accomplishing. And I didn't share my screen throughout that whole thing, did I? There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So do you guys have this up in front of you?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, so hopefully, and that's why I sent you the stuff too, so you can open it on your own. So in any case, this is a powerful sheet. This can make there are few things that will make you or break you in your business. Your doing these items will make you or break you. So you have that copy in the stuff that I sent you. Go ahead and print them out and start using them. Okay, so now let's jump into, so we've covered quite a bit of stuff today. Next week, we're going to be getting into lead generation type stuff. Any questions based on what we covered today? Okay. Was it helpful?
Yes.
Okay. I try to make this stuff, obviously the initial concept of this was to help new brokers get started, but I think it's business oriented enough that I don't care how experienced you are, you can come back to pieces of this and build your business better. So here's your action sheet for next week. So we're going to do this again next Thursday, 9:15. Use time blocking. So remember last week we talked about time blocking. Block out an hour to begin. In this case, I say lead generation, but work on your sphere. Block out an hour over the next week, work on your sphere. If you want to be an overachiever, that's totally cool. This is a place to do it. Take one person to coffee or lunch or breakfast via Zoom. Send out an invite. Say, hey, why don't we have coffee together? Talk with 20 people. So here's a thought. What if you went on to Amazon right now and you bought a box of 100 tea bags, or you bought a box of 50 instant coffees, and on Monday you mailed out one of those instant coffees, or maybe put one in there because you never know whether a person's a coffee drinker or a tea drinker. Maybe put one of each in the envelope and say, hey, I'd like to invite you to a Zoom coffee. How does next Wednesday at 3 o'clock work? And drop it in the mail to them. Wouldn't that be kind of a funky, weird, fun thing, right? I mean, nobody else is doing that stuff. Talk with 20 people. Now you should have no excuse not to pick up the phone and call people. Add at least people to your UCR. Set up 2 people in Neighborhood Insights, and that's where you go in and you go through your database and you identify people who own a home, and then just go into My Desk and set them up with a housing insight, with a Neighborhood Insights. Send out 5 handwritten notes. Go on a weekly home tour. Okay, you're not going to do that. You could certainly give a plant or a title or escrow officer a call and have a conversation with them, and then use your UCR weekly progress report. So that's that sheet that we just covered. That's your homework for the week. So any questions about homework for the week? Okay. Anything else you guys want to talk about while we're here? Quiet group. Okay, well, thank you for being here today. I hope you picked something up from it. More importantly than picking something up, I hope you actually go and take action on a couple of these items. Don't try to do it all. Pick 1 or 2 things that you want to accomplish and just go do it. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks, Frank.
everybody.